Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our OP's grandpa was surly and downright scary to those who didn't know him, but he was a giant sweetheart who wanted nothing more than to be left alone with his family. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Want me to remove the plants on the edge of my property? Sure. Okay, not my story, but it's one of my nonno. Also, nonno is Italian for grandfather, but this entire story happened in Australia in the 90s. My nonno used to have vines as a hobby up until the mid-90s, but when he started to get older, he stopped tending them so much. He pulled out the ones furthest away from the house and let that regrow into native bushland at the back. The neighbors in behind weren't a fan of his, as they used that land to tend their grapes and now had to be more careful with their tractor, so they didn't hit anything. They complained to Nonno several times, eventually threatening to get a surveyor in and forcing him to prune his property back to that line. He told them to get off his property and slammed the door. Well, said neighbor did get a surveyor in. Want to know what they found? There was indeed a discrepancy. The last row of vines planted by that neighbor was on Nonno's land all along. Nonno knew this, he just never bothered to call in a surveyor as it hadn't been a problem up until now. After the verdict came through, he happily removed the offending plants on the property boundary, and his neighbors lost a row of vines. And our second story. Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. The management company that oversees my apartment building has always been total crap. Packages go missing from the mailroom, repairs take forever, staff are unfriendly, not at all worth what we pay in fees. There was only one solid employee, and he almost made up for everyone else's incompetence, the janitor, Ruan. He kept everything sparkling clean and even pitched in when other people slacked off, helping with repairs, ID checking in the lobby, and more, just because he took pride in the building. Then the corporate oversight of the management company changed, and the new boss was having all the properties inspected to do a quality spot check on the individual building managers. Our manager, the winner that he is, decided the best course of action would be to not come in the day of the oversight visit so that it would have to be canceled. The hope was the checker would just inspect what he could without the manager on site, which wasn't much, since he'd have already made the trip out there. My apartment has terrible cell reception and no AC, so I spend a ton of time downstairs in the lobby, which has both. I was able to overhear most of the planning for this visit as a result. Our janitor, Ruan, knew too, and he was spiffing everything up like new in excitement, fixing a few broken things the repairs guy ignored, even bringing in fresh-cut flowers to the lobby out of his own pocket. Ruan dressed up in a collared shirt and khakis for the visit. He didn't know the manager was bailing. I just heard it hanging out in the lobby late one night. So when the corporate inspector arrived, Ruan was the only guy he saw. He was dressed up, so the inspector shook his hand and started rattling off the things he wanted shown to him. Ruan knows this building better than anyone else on staff, so you could tell he was a little overwhelmed at being seen as the point person, but he knew the answers to every one of the inspector's questions. Meanwhile, a few tenants and contractors who frequent the building passed and all knew Ruan, brought him concerns about their apartments. Those on the staff who knew we were being inspected even made a point to say, yeah, Ruan's the guy if you've got a problem. So the end of the inspection must have come because they recongregated in the lobby. The inspector told Ruan he wanted to get his full name so he could make a note in his employee file of how well he's run the building so far, and that he'd meet with him later in the week to discuss fixes for the problems he found. Ruan, shocked, is like, "You want to meet with me again?" And the inspector's like, "Sure, I'm looking forward to a long working relationship. I like to meet with each building once a month." "Sorry, what was your name again for the file?" Ruan told him, and the inspector goes, "Hold on, I thought someone called Eddie was the manager here." And Ruan explained, clearly embarrassed and scared he'd done something wrong, that he's not the manager. The manager didn't come in today. The inspector then went and spoke with a few people in the building on his own, while Ruan absolutely lost his crap in the lobby, thinking he was going to be fired or get the building censured or something. Eventually, the inspector comes back and he sits Ruan down and tells him he might not be the manager in title, but he's the manager in action. So if he wants, he's got a new job. The man cried. Ruan's been working as a contractor through a janitorial service not directly for the building, so no benefits, considered part-time, very little job security or support, and he'd just gone from that to a cushy office job in the building he loves in the blink of an eye. I was sitting on the couch a few spaces down from them. The lobby has a sitting area with tables and chairs and couches, and I felt compelled to ask, before anyone got too excited, "Hey, excuse me, can you do that? Or could someone veto this?" Because I hated to think Ruan would be so excited only to have some sort of bureaucracy or old boys club shoot down his promised opportunity, the inspector turns to me and informs me that he's the new COO of the management company and final hiring decisions are at his sole discretion. Then he asked who I was, and I basically said I was just leaving, and I effed off right out of there before my big mouth complicated things any further. This week, Ruan started officially. We've got flowers in the lobby every day now, and a dripping faucet I've been waiting 6 weeks to have fixed is scheduled for repair on Thursday. He didn't work there, but he does now. And our next story. Karen at my old job. So I know I'm pretty new here, but I found I really like laughing at the stupid butt Karens on here. This inspired me to write one of my Karen-related stories. So I was about 19 and working a part-time, that was more full-time, job at a little soda shop in my hometown. For the most part, I got along with my manager and assistant manager. However, they had a bad habit of making friends with the customers in a way that kept me in a state of annoyance. This meant instead of backing me, they sided with customers even if they were being awful to me, and then would turn around and tell me I did what I was supposed to do, but they had to keep all the customers happy. One day, the owner, who's notorious for being stupid enough to buy a pig picture for $250 and trying to sell it for more kinda stupid, walked up and told us we needed to start changing for cups of water. She didn't say how much, and I was told by my managerial team to charge the amount of a small regular drink, so I did. This is where the story begins. So we had these two nurses that would come in every day, hold up our line talking to the management team, laugh obnoxiously loud, and talk about nasty stuff that no one should hear about while they're eating. And yet no one did anything about it, and I had to suffer through it. Well, today they come in as usual and order their food, and one of them orders a cup of water. I ring them up, they question the total, I explain why it's a little more than usual, and they look at me like I'm crazy. "Are you serious? Are you effing stupid?" So I'm like, "Ma'am, I'm only doing my job. Please don't talk to me that way." My management team immediately came up and asked what the problem is, and she starts spouting bull about me needing to be fired and how I'm a effing idiot and how she knows for a fact that we don't charge for water cups, blah, blah, blah. So my manager tells me to go get cleaned up because I've got tears rolling down my face and that she'd take care of it. I should have known better, but I did as I was told. When I was calmed down enough, I was walking back to the kitchen, and I feel something cold and wet hit me in the back of the neck. I turn around and the nurses were laughing their butts off. One of them had thrown a piece of ice at me. These 40-plus-year-old ladies were bullying a 19-year-old over a cup of ice water. I brushed it off and went back to my spot behind the counter, not knowing what else to do, and my manager had walked up to me. They said you charged them extra for their water. I explained I charged for what she told me to, and she immediately said, No, honey, I told you to charge 10 cents. I looked at her dumbfounded, knowing completely she told me to charge regular price. For the rest of the time I worked there, I didn't charge anyone but those two for cups of water. Get effed, Karen. Am I the only one that wants to see the pig picture? And our last story. Neighbor cut down a rare 150-year-old tree that's been in my family for generations. Recently, a great aunt of mine died, and we needed to spend a week in Washington State, and we asked a neighbor to take care of our 5 cats, 2 dogs, and 100-plus chickens. We came back this morning. While my dad was inspecting the property, he noticed that our 150-year-old giant sequoia was gone. My great-great-grandfather had planted the tree after returning from California, and it's not native to northern Illinois, but with the right care, it can survive. You just have to be careful about windburn in the winter. Now, the tree itself isn't that large because it's still young, and the winters here stun its annual growth. Upon the first confrontation, the neighbor admitted he'd cut it down, but upon further questioning, will say nothing and denies doing it at all, and my parents really have no idea what to do. Update. My parents ended up getting a lawyer, obviously, and it ended up growing to a team of 3 lawyers. It started with them billing hourly, but the guy ended up doing something to piss them off so much that they switched over to being paid on contingency, and we got lawyers' costs included in our settlement. Also, there's a house in Michigan that'll be constructed using lumber gained from our tree. I never did find out about his motive for cutting down our tree, but generally it was good news. One day my dad came in all excited, saying about how we own him, we own his kids, and we own his grandkids. It turns out we're going to be getting 3 50-year-old sequoias instead of one big 150-year-old sequoia because they'll be easier to transport. My parents say that we'll also plant a new sapling sequoia when I go off to college. It's still bittersweet though. We still don't have our tree back. The neighbor's going to have to sell his farm to pay for it all. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.